Welcome to the deep dive. We often ask ourselves these huge questions, don't we? Like, who are we really? Where did we come from? Where are we headed? Well, today, we're going to explore some answers, or at least one fascinating perspective, drawing from The Journey of the Human Soul by Hanshi Deena Naidu. Now, Hanshi Naidu is quite accomplished. He's a Keihatsu master guiding spiritual awakening, an SMA, or Spirit Mind Awareness teacher, a meditation teacher, and, well, a major spiritual scholar. So our mission here is to sort of unpack his unique view on how consciousness, the human soul itself, evolves. Think of this as a shortcut to some pretty deep ideas. Okay, let's dive in.
Exactly. And what Hanshi Naidu provides isn't just vague spirituality, it's a really structured framework, almost like a map,
Map, okay.
Yeah, a map showing where souls start, the steps they take, the levels they pass through. We'll be looking at these different layers today.
Right, so where does this map begin? Hanshi Naidu talks about human life starting as new souls.
That's the term he uses, yes.
And these souls, he says, have the lowest consciousness in the human species. Still above animals, though.
Right. Their thinking ability is greater than animals, but he's clear they're limited in terms of reasoning and spiritual know-how.
And definitely below higher beings like angels or guides.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that specific placement. It puts human consciousness on a spectrum right from the start. New souls have the human potential, but the spiritual journey, the deeper understanding, that's just beginning for them.
So not all humans are operating on the same level, spiritually speaking.
Not according to this framework, no. He explicitly mentions different levels of consciousness amongst humans. It's presented as a kind of evolution.
Okay, what are these levels? He lists them out. New souls, then young souls, moving up to mature souls, then teacher souls, and finally the peak is master souls.
It's a whole progression, a developmental path for the soul within human experience.
But it's even bigger than just humans, isn't it?
Yeah.
He talks about an evolutionary process and a transition of souls from something called group consciousness.
Yes, transitioning from group consciousness eventually towards collective consciousness. And the group consciousness part, that's where it gets really expansive.
Because he says it starts. Well, where?
In rocks.
Rocks.
Yeah, seriously.
That's what he outlines. Rocks first, then trees, then insects, then animals. That's the sequence of evolving group consciousness he describes.
Wow. Okay. So a sort of shared basic awareness that builds complexity.
That seems to be the idea, like a fundamental resonance in existence that gradually becomes more focused, more localized as it moves through these different forms. It really challenges the idea that consciousness only pops up with brains.
Okay, so after the animal stage, what happens?
That's the crucial transition point he identifies. When the animal stage concludes, human beings appear, starting their journey as a single soul.
A single soul. And this is what he calls the ego identity.
Exactly. If you think about that bigger picture, moving from a shared, almost elemental awareness through plants and animals, to suddenly an individual sense of I.
Right. That feeling of being separate, distinct, my thoughts, my feelings, myself. It's a profound shift from that earlier group state, and it kind of sets up the whole human learning curve.
And that learning curve, it's not easy, is it? He says this ego identity struggles finds itself over many lifetimes.
It's presented as a very long-term project, yes. A journey of discovery, really.
And there are specific lessons the ego needs to learn along the way.
Core lessons, yes. He lists them. Things like duty before self, love above attachment, finding peace beyond harming, achieving righteousness, and ultimately knowing truth.
Those sound significant. Huge undertakings.
Definitely. And he stresses this takes cosmic time. It's filled with great challenges, he says, but also real satisfaction and accomplishment.
So the path itself shapes the soul. And the ultimate goal is
to become a good person first, then progress to being a pure person, and finally, a divine being.
And how does that happen?
He states it plainly. It is self-realization that does it. When you think about growth over those kinds of timescales, it's staggering. It suggests every single experience, every challenge isn't random. It's all feeding into this massive unfolding of the self, moving through these stages.
Okay, but there's a catch, right? As this whole process starts for the ego, he says ignorance is placed into the minds of people, like deliberately.
It seems so. Part of the setup for the learning process. And then there's this other concept, this membrane called illusion or Maya.
Maya, right, I've heard that term.
It's described as surrounding the consciousness of the individual ego. Like a veil, you could say.
A veil, what does it do?
It limits perception, basically. It makes us identify almost completely with our little separate ego self, forgetting any larger connection.
And what happens when that veil starts to tear? He mentions confusion.
Yes, when the membrane starts to get holes in its ego, as he puts it, confusion is born. When our fixed ideas get shaken up.
But this confusion, it's not actually a bad thing.
Apparently not. It seems to be necessary. It's the crack that lets the light in, maybe. It forces the ego to question its own limited view.
And this is where cause and effect come in. He calls cause and consequence the ego's greatest ally.
Exactly. That's the mechanism for learning.
And that's how the law of karma worms its way into the soul's life.
Right. And what's really striking here is how these things, ignorance, illusion, even karma, aren't presented just as problems or punishments.
They're tools.
Almost, yeah, integral parts of the learning process, necessary challenges that push the soul to evolve. Karma, in this view, isn't just payback. It's like this perfect feedback system guiding the soul toward balance, toward understanding itself better. It's quite a different perspective, isn't it?
It really is. Framing karma as an ally. Okay, so the soul learns, grows through all this. What happens next?
It keeps evolving. Eventually, it grows and becomes a collective consciousness, like all in the mature soul world. It starts moving beyond that tight, separate ego.
Right, the levels again. So past mature soul.
Yeah.
Teacher soul.
Yes. And at the teacher soul levels, he says the soul has fully acknowledged its state of oneness.
Oneness. So really understanding that interconnectedness.
That seems to be the essence of it, moving from me to we, but on a profound soul level.
And the final stage. Master soul.
That's the pinnacle in this human framework. When it is a master soul, it is divine, and the state associated with that. Bliss is with its state of being, always.
Divine. Bliss.
Wow.
So if you step back and look at the whole arc, it starts as this tiny point of individual ego, born out of group consciousness. Then it goes through lifetime after lifetime of lessons, challenges, pushed by karma, guided by cause and effect, piercing through illusion.
Until it expands past the ego.
Into collective consciousness, recognizes its oneness with everything, and finally reaches this state of divinity and constant bliss. It's a complete cycle from separation back to unity, but at a much higher level. So wrapping this up, what does this massive journey described by Hanshi Deena Naidu really mean for you, listening right now? It paints this incredibly vast picture, doesn't it? Starting as new souls, learning lifetime after lifetime, moving from ego to collective awareness, aiming for oneness, even divinity.
It suggests our lives aren't just random sequences of events. There's a purpose, a direction within this framework, a continuous evolution of consciousness towards something greater. Always growing, always learning.
It definitely gives you a different lens to look through. So here's a final thought to chew on. What does Hanshi Deena Naidu's perspective on consciousness, this cosmic timescale, make you consider about your own journey, right here, right now? It's certainly something to think about. And for anyone wanting to explore this further, we understand Hanshi Deena Naidu is open to interviews on these fascinating topics.